Hello and one and all, and welcome to Hinckliffe Stadium in what is now a chilly Patterson, New Jersey. Dan Hilton and Carmen Holland here with you on the broadcast for some Premier Ultimate League action between the New York Gridlock and the Minnesota Strike. While the allergies, well, they've got me down, Carmen, but again, we are here on the air and the discs are about to fly. For both these teams, it is their first game of the season, so obviously for the Gridlock, it is their home opener. And so, Carmen, of course, with any beginning of a new season, especially because we're already a few weeks into the PUL season, so they've had a chance to see a lot of their opponents and rivals already play some games. But at this point, it is still cold. It's still spring turning into summer, but certainly we can expect a little bit of nerves from both of these teams.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously with any sport that you play, especially with this, the wind is a factor, and we're right next to a park and we're in a park, and there's a waterfall. There's a strong wind and breeze, so that might affect things today. And honestly, it's all about just getting your footing when it comes to first game jitters.
Yeah, we got to see the wave in women's tackle football prior to this, and
Great game.
that has a little bit less of a, we'll say, impact, but we've got a parking garage behind us, and you see some other tall buildings, and what that does lead to in these stadiums is a swirling wind. So we'll have to see how these two teams take that into account as the teams are on the field, and we are just moments away again from the opening pull here again on YouTube. I want to thank you for joining us on this Saturday night as the Gridlock, who last season, a 5-1 record, lost to the DC Shadow in the semifinals at championship weekend, while the Minnesota Strike went 2-3, missing the postseason. The Minnesota Strike in their road white uniforms with the blue gradient and the black shorts, and the Gridlock, meanwhile, on the other side in their home black uniforms with the pink gradient and the black shorts. So it will be the Gridlock to start on O, and a few fresh faces between the number 2 in their first season, Eddie Lamb, Marie Riverica, as well as Jolie Krebs, Gina Cartagena, and the player that I think we're going to be talking quite a bit about today, rounding out that Gridlock O, is Emma Poyer, playing in her first season with the Gridlock, but the player who was on Minnesota for the last 3 seasons has now come over as a primary cutter. Abby Hecko, the 7th and final member of the Gridlock O, coming over from the D-line with a few injuries. Cartagena, nice little backhand, breaking the mark. And Krebs, you see forcing backhand are the Strike. Lamb. Krebs cycling through, high stall count. And the Strike getting a hand to it was Millie Wright.
So close, yet so far away.
Right in her first season at Winnipeg, Canada. And now there is Wright conducting the offense. That looks like a foot block, but they say a foul. Waverka last season with 3 blocks, but that's not going to count as one today. Quick reset. And still the backhand force. Nice layout. Keeping possession. That one will float to the sideline. And here comes the centering pass. A good movement so far coming from the Strike D-line. I think it's probably a pretty positive sign when your D-line can have this kind of flow and this movement. Still forcing backhand.
They're really moving down the field.
And just winning those unders. As this one will float. And we could have our first break of the game. But Abby Hecko says no.
Wow, that was impressive. I thought she was gonna catch that and take it in.
It looked like the Strike player had positioning. But Abby Hecko coming in at the last second. Again, last season, usually a D-line player in her second season now with New York. Cartagena, again, will be handling quite a bit today without Valet Cartagenas, who was I'd say a late scratch. Nice layout, D. Coming through with the full layout in her second season. Frankie Sereniti. Now Monshine. And that's a run-through block by Lamb. At some point, Carmen, it's good defense, but again, it's also a little bit of sloppy offense as the first huck from the Gridlock completed. Now Lamb, they got a 2v3 if they hurry. Into the end zone, and the completion is Hecko. Technically on the bookends with a few in the middle, but the Gridlock, that's, Carmen, I think the definition of a dirty hold.
Yeah, that was really smooth sailing right there. I thought that they moved it really well, and they got in there quick, and they didn't give Minnesota a chance to really get set to try to get any deflections there.
So Grace Connerly will pick up the assist to Hecko. He's already got half of the 2 goals he had last season in the entire season. And, of course, the player that leaked out there on that long huck for the completion was Emma Poyer. And we were able to see early on her ability to stretch a field. So now the opportunity to see the Gridlock defense. One of those long-time captains in her 8th season, Nikki Hare. Again, for all the good offense we saw from that Minnesota Strike D line. And this is now the O-line. Rachel Johnson immediately picking up and centering to Michaela Daly. Nice mark by Eli Pressberg. Nice touch on these discs. Daniel Byers now. Just working around the horn. To Mia Beeman-Weber in their first season. To Steph Wood. Got one of those experienced players. Run through block. Second attempt, and it is Pressberg. Sadie Jezerski.
The way she just snuck up in there, that was impressive. I didn't expect her.
That's on the under, as this will hit the ground. Turnover from Hare. Huck. It's going to be low, and Hare gets it right back. And that's kind of the mindset of a defensive player, right? I mean, you're not expected to necessarily move the disc, move the offense. Again, you want to be a part of those fast breaks. But for Nikki Hare, again, getting the turnover and then getting it right back on defense.
Yeah, didn't give up. Didn't get frustrated. Just moved on to the next play.
Stuck in what could be called Coffin's corner. And the Strike playing some zone. The Gridlock got stuck there, Pressberg, with the turn. So now the Strike getting some good field position. About 2 throws away. That one will float into the end zone and grab. The assist from Daly and the goal from Byers.
All tied up. That was quick.
Again, that Strike offense. Also a dirty hold. And as much as this has been a swirling win, you just see the amount of time that the players have to be able to read that disc, get in position.
Yeah, for sure.
And it does seem closer to the end zones as well. In the middle of the field here is where we're seeing, I think, the lion's share of these turnovers so far from both sides. But we also noticed, too, the Strike came prepared in that Coffin's corner. They were prepared with that, what looked to be 3 in the cup zone. And so a little bit of a panic throw.
Yeah, it seems like once they get down there close to the goal line, they don't really have a problem getting it in.
Again, a reminder, these teams have been practicing for multiple months now, and some of their other teams around the PUL have already begun play this season. As we are at 1-1 and 5 minutes and change off the clock here in the first quarter. Again, I want to thank you for joining us here on YouTube There is Krebs to Echo, who's already having a big game. Inside to Lamb. A Tufts University product. And now Poyer.
Oh.
What a layout.
Wow.
Left-handed grab. Grace Connerly.
Wow. Get that. I love that. I didn't think she was going to get it.
And Connolly putting on a show and showing you exactly how you catch one of those trailing discs, stopping rotation with the left hand. And that's trust from her new teammate in Poyer. And Connerly, the Chapel Hill, North Carolina product. And, I mean, we know, Carmen, that North Carolina Ultimate, pretty good, particularly UNC with all those championships they won.
Yeah.
They may have been highlighted by Dawn Colton, but Grace Connerly, pretty terrific player in her own right. And clearly, inbounds, it's a nice clean layout. So for the Gridlock, that'll be a hold, 2-1. It didn't take too much time either. Again, we've noticed so far how much the addition of Poyer, she's being used to stretch the field because of how dangerous of an option she is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So on that first point, too, the Gridlock offense was on the field for quite some time, and I think they're probably a little bit relieved to just have a quick, to make the football comparison, instead of a 3-and-out, but just a quick drive.
Right.
Right downfield.
Mm-hmm.
Was it 4 total throws? The Strike have done an adept job at using the width of the field. They have 2 coming into the backfield. Well done to get off the sideline. That'll be a turnover. Nobody in particular. Looked like Daly might have had a miscommunication with somebody downfield. And here comes this zone again. That is a tremendous throw from Pressburg this time to break that zone. You look, it's 4 in the cup, and then that 2-person wall in the middle. And just called up from the practice squad the other day, number 97, Maggie Fan. Second season on the team, but making her Gridlock debut today and being tasked to cut through that zone. Again, a big task for a practice player. They finally find Sam Harris, and now breaking through that zone. Too much time to set up. And Sam Harris could not control from Pressburg. One had a little bit of muster to it, but again, they had to both get it past the zone, which they did, keep it in bounds, which was just as difficult, and then also catch something with that kind of heat on it. So the Strike get it right back from this D-line. And Wood and Daly just playing catch. Cassie Brown getting the assignment of Daly. Beeman Weber. Not in the end zone yet, just yet. Byers to Wood. Wood over the top. And toeing the line. That will get it done. Beeman Weber in their first season. And first professional season as well. A product of Carleton's Syzygy, as are many of the Minnesota Strike players. Not the overwhelming amount, but again, before doing this game, Carmen, I don't want to quiz you on your, well, say non-D1, at least for Ultimate Frisbee, but in other sports, Carleton College is likely not a place outside of Ultimate Frisbee that you would have heard of here living in the Northeast.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So we're all tied up. That was fast. It's been a really good game so far, but honestly, the temperatures are really starting to drop. I don't know if they're feeling it. I have a feeling that the Minnesota team probably have no problem with the cold. They're probably like, you know what, this is a brisk day. This is fine. We're good.
And, of course, we have no problem with Discraft. The Discraft Ulti Star is the official disc of the Premier Ultimate League. Discraft, the world leader in disc sports. We are tied up at 2-2 in what is seemingly, because I think because of the wind and the temperature, could turn into a war of attrition. These two teams on pace for around 17, 18 goals, which is a similar scoreline than we've seen from these two in past seasons. Strike looking for that first break, though. And almost a drop there. Second effort. Strike D-line now about 2 throws away from the end zone with 3:25 left to go in the first quarter. Inside break, well done. And then running onto it, Jane Koch. Koch's had some pretty good games against a Gridlock in years past. And sometimes you got to lose yards to gain yards. Good pressure, but still holding on to the disc. And again, strike D-line, showing that defensive layout efforts aren't just for getting blocked, but that time just a missed throw from Eva Fisher. Her first season. And it seems like half these players are from Minneapolis and the other half are from St. Paul of the Twin Cities.
I feel like that's so many. Every time you hear about like Minnesota, you hear about St. Paul or Minneapolis.
Yeah, both beautiful places that I've had the opportunity to get to, and getting to the Minnesota State Fair, which is something I always recommend to anybody.
What time of year does that come around?
That is usually in the summertime, around the end of July, August, depending. I mean, you could ask to have someone from the Twin Cities, but they've got those cheese curds.
Love a good cheese curd.
Exactly. And if you're somehow listening and watching this game and you're also in the stadium, we also recommend, we have concessions here as well. No cheese curds just yet at our concessions, but we will make a note of it.
Yep.
And again, with how long this was of a point, with 1:57 remaining in the first, looks like a first timeout of the game. This live broadcast of the Premier Ultimate League is brought to you by Breakmark Ultimate Apparel. Go to breakmark.com to place your next custom team order or check out the PUL Athlete Collab Shops. So, of course, a reminder, there actually was a rule change this season where it used to be buzzer beaters were possible at the end of the fourth quarter and overtime, but the rule has now been updated where it is last possession through all 4 quarters and potentially overtime. So whatever happens at the end of the last possession, the clock will hit 0, and whoever has the disc either is going to score a goal or they turn it over, and we are done. Okay. And we head into our break. So again, a reminder, those are the rules, and just a quick one of those little tweaks, those updates. So, and that, again, is to emphasize player safety as well, where the less jump balls you get in late game situations, the less bodies you have banging into each other, and the less players, of course, can continue and play this wonderful sport that we all love. As throughout this offseason especially, the Gridlock have dealt with a number of long-term injuries, again, most notably to last year's primary option in the receiving space in Jenny DeJesus. With her 25 goals last season, almost 1,000 receiving yards, that's still 1 throw away, the strike from the end zone. Remember, this could be the first break of this contest. We've got a foul. The question, was it on the mark? It looked like it might have been actually downfield as somebody was looking to take that space. So you can see hair on the mark, trying to figure out what that stall will be. Remember, these are observers, not referees. It's a self-officiated game. So the Gridlock players in discussion with the Strike players, figuring this one out. And also should be noted as well that at these timeouts, you see that the lines have basically changed. Well, that's because at timeouts you can swap out the line and swap out the players. That's why you're getting potentially a D-line break with the Strike offense. Still 1 throw away. Almost losing their footing there. And that one just goes through the wickets. No, it was caught on the second effort. Johnson McKee. Wood. And that one isn't going to be too far. A bit of pressure. And was that contact incidental? I think that might be what's being discussed here. And from our angle, it was quite tough to see, Carmen, whether or not, and that again, of course, is a discussion being had right now.
I think it was inadvertent from what I saw. The way the Gridlock's player's body was moving, I think that she was just trying to go for the disc.
Well, we get to see the replay here
we go.
again. Again, floating just a little bit too far. So the question is, did Sidersky come through the arm? So it is a contested foul, so we'll go back to the thrower. And it was a strike player that called foul, and they were not able to come to an agreement. So Pressburg will be back on the mark on Johnson. And 1:16 left to go in the first quarter. Still tied up at 2, and for the strike, that'll be the first break of the game. It's just a nice around break throw in for Beeman Weber, who has their second goal of the contest, and it's 3-2, and let's get another look at that. Pressburg on the mark, and that is just a step around, an easy goal, making it look simple, but sometimes when you have those breaks, Carmen, in the action, you either, as an offense, kind of get stuck, you kind of hold your breath a little bit,
Yeah.
or you could do that, have an exact, here's what we're going to do. And by the way, here's what we are going to do. We're going to tell you about Baker Street Health, who provide our players and staff with behavioral health, sport, and performance psychology, as well as podiatry services. They are located throughout New Jersey and are available for telehealth in over 35 states. From head to toe, our team is covered in Baker Street Health. So, of course, in a game, you'd expect that you can get a break back, but now the Gridlock find themselves in a little bit of a hole. And the strike, a bit of a mental advantage for them. And this is the first time now we've seen an offense go right to left here. And yes, I know the strike offense did score in this direction, but it wasn't elected in the field, and it's pretty simple, seems right now, for the Gridlock. But I spoke too soon, as that one was too far inside. That throw from Krebs behind Poyer. And now this O-line for the Gridlock will have to play defense again. Huck. And it looks like Hecko and Poyer did just enough to put him off with 35 seconds remaining. Now at this point, it does seem like 35 seconds is still a lot of time, but now we're at 25. And they've got the whole length of the field to go. But again, remember, it is last possession. So when the clock hits 0, as long as the Gridlock still have possession of the disc, they'll have the opportunity to finish the point. Catch under pressure from Connerly. Cartagena on that far sideline. Fakes out Hecko. And Connerly lets it fly. And that is ripped down by the strike player. So clock hit 0 as that D was yanked out of the sky. So again, that is last possession, and that is the end of the first quarter, with the strike getting the 1 break point.
I don't know how I feel about her going for that. I felt like maybe she could have not tried to be so ambitious and held out until the clock went and then pick it up second quarter.
For those of you watching at home, we are sorry you couldn't join us. We'd like you to please consider donating $20, the price of a game ticket, to help support player travel and training. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think there is something psychological, especially, again, we talk about how you're moving down the field in the direction you're going. You can see that big number saying 4, 3, 2, and what athlete doesn't say, this is my time?
Right, like this is it, big moment, let me get this point right before the quarter ends. That makes sense, but still, it's sometimes about strategy. You kind of have to take a second and think, hey, what would be the best thing? Because it just seems a little rushed.
And, of course, they do practice those last possession circumstances. But as you know, you practice something.
It's different in game.
Game time can be something different. And this video board here at Hincliffe Stadium, a credit to it, is a beautiful and gigantic video board, which is not in the same let me put it this way, where the Gridlock usually practice, they do not have that similar gigantic video board kind of screaming, again, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in your face. So, again, the Gridlock also nothing to lose in theory on that last possession, other than the fact that now you're going out and you've got to get that break right back. Because remember, they also started on defense. And again, there is a look at our beautiful, gigantic, not only the, of course, ad for Baker Street Health, but our Hincliffe Stadium billboard. And what's most importantly, said the Strike are up 3-2. And so far, the star in the end zone at least has been Beeman Weber, again, in their first season. But you can just see the size mismatch has been an issue with how the Gridlock are going to defend Beeman Weber. Because, of course, they're one of the only players that can really beat you over the top. But a lot of the throws to Beeman Weber, when we saw the first one, was a high release right up again into their pocket in the airspace where only they could get. But the second one was just, again, Beeman Weber winning that space on the break side. And that nice little around throw. So again, for the Gridlock, remember, again, they started this game on offense. So we're going to look back at that last possession and potentially an opportunity to tie the game back up, because they now have to start on defense for this second quarter of play. And another opportunity to see the Strike O-line, which is, believe it or not, as good as they've been, is without their main handler from last season in Erica Backen, who had 16 assists. The next closest assists on the team was Wood, who had 10. Oh, excuse me. Wood had 6 assists. Backen had 16. And so they're losing their main assist getter. But Sarah Mexstroth, who might be the biggest name as a Strike, give the disc back to this Gridlock D-line. Mexstroth is on the roster, unavailable for this one. So maybe, again, the most star-studded name on this Strike team. Not here. Again, also losing Poyer. So pretty much a perfect start for this team, as that one is overshot, intended for Presburg in the end zone. And that, I believe, was the Minnesota-born Audrey Parrott, who familiar with a number of these Strike players. Also, as we already mentioned, attended Carleton, played on the Women's Ultimate program there. Cassie Brown. Here's this Strike zone again. And now it's a 3v2 break if they want it. Picking out the spot. That one might head out the back, and it does. So
Got away from her a little bit.
Jazerski, again, that one just floating out the back, intended for another first season recruit in Dorothy Demasio Donahue. Demasio Donahue, again, getting a part of this, and the Strike having a hard time even getting that first throw off. Now Cassie Brown again. Pressburg gets free. Probably missed Parrott on the around. Now this one's going to float, but Hare is able to grab it. Hare, one throw away. And to the front of the end zone, and that is the break right back. That's how quickly things change, as Mari Malin, also from the Midwest, a Wisconsin product, gets the goal.
Right back in this game. I don't know if you guys can see this off YouTube, but there is a mist really starting to fall now on the field. And the waterfalls are right behind the stadium, and you can see it. It's really starting to come down, and I'm wondering if that's going to affect the players in any way, or maybe the turf, because it might be a little wet. So, traction.
The disc can be a little wet as well, too, yeah. More difficult to catch.
Yep.
That's why whenever we do the youth clinics, you always tell them if it's from your knees to your shoulders, you call it the alligator, as there you get to see, again, some of that mist here. It just makes the disc not necessarily slippery, but it's just not as clean as you think it is. That's why we always tell the young players, if you can, again, from knees to shoulder, it's called the alligator. If it's above your head, your lops of claws up above. If it's below your knees, your lops of claws down below. But that's also when you're teaching a 10 to 12-year-olds, again, they get to see the disc right into their body, whereas here, of course, you're throwing to the space, and And we've already seen from the strike especially, just full layouts. Again, one hand, got to get it with the trailing hand, high level difficulty catches. And now for that strike offense that really did struggle their last time down. Looks like they may have made a few personnel changes. Luis Beck, the number 30 with the disc. And now the around to Carly Ekstrom. Center of the field. And again, that one intended for at least one or two receivers, but seemed to be just a cadre of bodies in the middle of the field on what seemed to be a pretty routine inside-out flick. Cartagena was lining it up. Pressburg had Casey Banta Ryan, one of the captains, downfield. I'm not sure if Banta Ryan even understood how open she was. And you see Zerski wanted it deep. New Jersey product herself. Started playing in 6th grade at Westfield High School and also played Columbia High School, getting the birthplace of Ultimate back in 1969. Also a product of Devil, which is the largest youth development program, at least in the tri-state area. Cartagena. Again, after that break, and on being a long point, we're also seeing a bit of a mismatch of players on these lines. Trying to keep everybody fresh. Cartagena has moved over to this D-line, working the backfield with Pressburg. Cartagena from Medellin, Colombia. Last season had over 1,500 throwing yards and over 250 receiving yards. And not only that, but her 84 assists in 2023 are the most in the PUL. The second behind her is Atlanta's Quincy Booth, who has just 43. Again, that's the difference as the Gridlock give it back. Just tell you how dominant Cartagena has been as a deliverer of assists. Again, 84-43 in second place in the PUL.
Back and forth we go.
Now we're 2.5 minutes off the clock here in the second. We've got just one score, and it was that break by the Gridlock. We did mention in these conditions, it can be a bit of a war of attrition. And we also talked about the nerves, but it could be also a little bit of rust with the game. And it also is a big reminder as well that for a lot of these players who do play high-level club as well, it's also starting the club season. So it really is a ramping up in a lot of different aspects of the competition. So you really are still doing, for a lot of these players, of course, not saying they don't need to try out for their club teams, but a lot of these professional players have, or semi-professional players to say, have kind of guaranteed spots on their rosters, but it is still ramping up practices and tryouts and the like.
And just to say, Well by Messer with overlay, shout out to Gridlock sponsor, Well by Messer, the premier metabolic and wellness health center for metabolic health in New York and Connecticut. Under the leadership of Manhattan-based endocrinologist Dr. Carolyn Messer, her team of endocrinologists, adult and pediatric, internists, dermatologists, urologists, gynecologists, psychologists, registered dietitians, and trainers is dedicated to a mind and body approach to wellness. At Well by Messer, our goal is to support successful outcomes through a personalized and balanced approach that utilizes evidence-based medicine and wellness. And we're at a break right now in the play. It looks like it's still the Gridlock's possession.
Yeah, so after that timeout, just remember it is 2 per for each team. And they'll get 2 then in the third quarter. So Krebs in the backfield. Lamb back to Krebs. And Gridlock can basically put their O-line on the field now. Strike player lost their footing. Gridlock can't capitalize. Cartagena throwing those fakes to Hecko. Hecko that big backhand and finds Krebs at the front of the end zone. It's 2 breaks in a row for the Gridlock, and momentum has gone back the way of New York. Again, that's an initial break from Cartagena. And then Hecko the step around. And Krebs the hop in.
This live broadcast is brought to you by the Premier Ultimate League. The PUL is a 501 nonprofit. This league has been community funded since day one, and we are so grateful for the support. We ask that you consider donating to help us continue to transform and fulfill our mission. Head to premierultimateleague.com to donate today.
So now again, the Gridlock have changed their fortunes, up 4-3, as they have outscored the Strike with both goals so far in this second quarter. And really so far what it has been about, Carmen, is just executing on the other mistakes from the opposition. And the Strike have had some first, second throw, and flow has definitely been an issue here for them in the second quarter.
Yeah, I agree. Every time they get going, it's either someone deflects it or it falls in a turnover. So just kind of working out whatever kicks need to work out to get back on the board.
And the Gridlock also spreading out the love. 4 different goal scorers.
I'm in. Almost at it. Another turnover. Back to the Gridlock.
So the Strike once again, as you mentioned, another turn there. And this is the D-line for the Gridlock back on the field. There's Hare. And this is good flow from the Gridlock. It also depends, too, on where that turnover for the Strike happens. A lot of these turnovers are happening right in the middle of the field. So the Strike have not had the opportunity to set up their zone, as we keep seeing. That time, though, it's the D by Beeman Weber. And interesting to note, too, every time that the Gridlock had been in that corner, the Strike have instituted that zone, but the Gridlock are just going person to person here.
Every time they get in that corner, the Strike, throw a strike.
And I think a travel was called on somebody. So the clock gets reset to 5:22. And looks like Beeman Weber will keep the disc. Okay, so that was just a bit of a clock communication. And well done. Again, that's a little bit of teamwork there. One had the box out, and coming underneath it was Johnson and Mickey. Now Beeman Weber. Getting stuck.
Nice catch.
Yeah, one-handed grab.
Can they capitalize on this momentum right here?
Pressburg on the stall on Beeman Weber. I think we might have a disagreement, too, on this stall. You see the observers coming over. So it is a contested stall, meaning Pressburg called the stall. Beeman Weber disagreed. And they're going to get it right up the sideline. Losing some yards, that's okay. Back to Wood. Right. And what a layout. My goodness. Sidursky throws this one up, jump ball for Pressburg. Pressburg goes deep. Demasio Donahue ran it out. Now Hare for the Strike. You're One throw away, and now the whole length of the field, the Gridlock. Pressburg goes end zone. And it looks like this one's going to continue to float out. But again, one of the things that you're seeing from this Gridlock D-line is, even if you don't score here, there's 3:40 left. That strike O-line has been on the field for a long time.
Yeah. I'm sure they're feeling it now. And they're back on offense. I wish the Gridlock would have took advantage of the opportunity, but we'll see what happens on the other end.
So the strike. And they've got to go the whole length of the field again. They can't get there. Swiderski comes through it.
She's everywhere.
Now Brown. To Pressburg. Pressburg back to Brown again. Around for Pressburg. And Hare, they could not finish.
2 opportunities missed down there.
2 turns for Pressburg right here on the goal line.
They're going to want that one back.
Pressburg last season with 11 total assists. Over 1,000 throwing yards again for Eli Pressburg. Just trying to get some of that first game rust out. And also have to mention, too, that Pressburg-Beeman-Weber matchup has been quite the matchup.
Swiderski again. She's everywhere.
Swiderski cannot be stopped. I think that is block number 3 on this point. And then she's going to look like she almost threw a dime. But that Blady throw was a difficult ask of Missy O'Donoghue.
2 paws up, man. 2 paws up.
Johnson goes crossfield.
Can the strike get something going the last minute 30 of this quarter before half?
It's a good point as well. Minute 36 means that the Gridlock would likely, if the strike, regardless of what happens here, wow, what a layout there. You can see that Swiderski is just, whether she has to take an injury now, and you can just see her behind the play, just gasping for life as
she's been everywhere. I mean, she's been getting deflections, and she almost had that one. She fell down. She needs a second.
halftime could not come soon enough. And on the other side, I think there might be a call on, I think a foul was called on Hare. We'll see this again. So Hare thought she was underneath it, and then coming over the top was George LaFrance. And it is a retracted call, so the Gridlock will have possession with 1:12 remaining, and they're going to take a timeout as well. And I think, of course, we were just talking about, again, that fitness as well. This is game 1. Again, the players are still rounding up into shape, and, I mean, if you're Sadie Swiderski on this point in particular, for all the effort, the 3 blocks, all the, I mean, the near assists and putting her body completely on the line. Again, a wise timeout as well.
And our Gridlock is teaming up with the Saw Athletic to keep our gear fresh and our game strong. Their odor blocking Aerocase cleat bag is the ultimate sidekick for every athlete, because the only thing that should be unstoppable is you. Use NY Gridlock 15 at checkout for 15% off.
So for the Gridlock, of course, I'd say for this one, Carmen, with 1:12 off the clock, what kind of urgency, what do you do if you're the Gridlock? And you know that it's not really 1:12, it's 1:12 plus 0 to last possession.
I would say just try to go into half with some momentum, make the best play possible. I would say, obviously, if you see something you think you can get that score, go for it. But if you can't, I say just don't give them the disc back and keep the momentum going your way.
Well, that I think will be certainly for the Gridlock. This throw over the top. Again, just
And
run
there we
through
go.
D from the strike, and they're off to the races.
Here we go. Talking about the momentum. Strike has some momentum right here.
That strike zone has been so dangerous. Pressure from Connerly.
57 seconds.
I think that cut may have got the job done. Lamb, the layout into the body. They play on, and that is going to be just a misthrow.
That's unfortunate. That was a self-inflicted error.
But what a catch, and then difficult throwaway like that.
36.
You can see Fisher just trying to rub, kind of as you mentioned, rub some of that condensation off on the turf.
Yeah, the mist is really coming down here. 22 seconds.
Connerly, again, now 15 on the clock. And if you're the Gridlock, you're not in a hurry.
No.
Break throw around to Krebs. The strike looks like going with a generally flat mark to backhand. So this is last possession. So the strike will not be scoring again in this half. The question is, can the Gridlock take a 2-goal lead? Cartagena. And it looks like we got a call downfield. Or actually, it might have been on the mark. It's Cartagena asking for disc space against Serenity. And so clock turned off. Cartagena getting stuck. Krebs losing her footing, having to throw up a prayer, and that will end the half.
What a first 2 quarters. Very competitive. Strike only down.
And I think a stall was called, which would end the quarter either way. So really, we might just be having a discussion on how the quarter ends. Well, actually, it looks like the call might have been a foul against Krebs. Not against Krebs, but for Krebs, I should say. And what would that do? It would put the disc back into the hands of Cartagena. But the official call is a stall on Cartagena. So that means that the strike, their defensive stand for the second quarter in a row, holds. But the Gridlock take a 4-3 lead into the half.
Yeah, this was a really good first half. Let's see how they come out after halftime.
Well, let's get you the final stats here as we head to the break. The goal scorers for the strike are Byers and 2 from Beeman Weber as follows. 3 with 3 assists. 1 assist apiece, I should say, as Grace Connolly, she has been dealing with 2 assists. And Krebs, Ellen, Poyer, and Heckel all with a goal apiece. Nikki Hare and Heckel also adding an assist. And I think my fingers go up large enough to actually count the Sadie Jaderski blocks in that first, or I should say second quarter.
Right.
We'll do our numbers and our figuring the things out in the halftime break. Don't go too far. We'll be back with the Gridlock up on the Minnesota Strike 4-3 at the break. Back here for the second half. Allergies for me, still bad. Carmen, action, still good. As the Gridlock here in the second half begin proceedings on offense, again, with the opportunity to take that 2-goal lead that they've been ever so close to, but the Strike could have said the same thing when they had that initial break. Remember, they went up 3-2 with the Gridlock and failing to kind of create any distance at the end of both the second and the first and second quarters with those last possessions.
But really, the game could have went either way in that first half.
So the Strike with the pull there. In that first quarter, it was 2 clean holes and 1 break for Minnesota. And in the second quarter, it was 2 holds apiece, 2 breaks for New York. Or correction, that was in totality, just the 2 breaks for New York in that second quarter. Lamb, catch under pressure. Eddie Lamb out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 2-time national champ at the club level with Boston Brute Squad out of the Boston area. And one of the best women's club teams around as Krebs. And that one seemed to slip out of her hand as well. So as much as we said the wind was going to be a factor, it does look like, again, that condensation on the disc is playing such a major role. We've seen some uncharacteristic throwaways.
I told you. The miss is no joke.
And I wouldn't even call them sloppy throwaways, just they're just slipping out of the hands in ways that you just don't practice for. On that in cut, in and out of the hands of Wright. There's Cartagena again, directing traffic to Hecko and talking to one of the Gridlock coaches as Hecko gives it away on the mark. Talking to Brittany Taylor in pregame. Again, one of the coaches along with Ian Finley and Dmitry Suvorov. In the pregame, she was telling me, again, that Hecko, she just kind of wants her to find the game. So used to playing on that D-line, but now with so many players out, having the opportunity to step into an O-line role. And while she did have the turn there, we just been seeing the way she's using her legs and big game ability as we've got it looks like a pick behind the play. So now the Strike, 1 throw away. Nice little wheel cut. Cartagena at the front of the end zone. What a grab. From Byers. They reverse the field and in the end zone.
Tied up, 4-4. That was quick.
In her 5th season. Last year, she had just 1 goal in the 4 games. Struggled with a bit of fitness, but Jane Koch, who's now again her 5th season with the Minnesota Strike. Again, that nice break throw over the top and immediate continuation from the hands of Claire Lee. So the Strike, as far as offense goes, I mean, that was pretty clean. After breaking, again, that was also the D-line offense that we're talking about. And that is now tied up at 2 breaks apiece. And 4 in total. And for us, we're getting a good look, too, about and this wind. It does look like it's going left to right, but as we mentioned, the closer you get down on the field, that is where you get that swirling wind. So, again, where we are up here, you can see it flowing, again, left to right.
It's like they say, it's one thing to watch it, it's another thing to be in it.
And just, it's such an interesting thing to know that by the time the season ends, it could be, again, 95. I know it was 85 degrees this week, but, again, you could be playing again under the lights and even at night, it could be 85 degrees and a lot of humidity. Lamb saying that there was contact created on the mark. Seems like no disagreement there from Lee. So starting this third quarter, the Gridlock offense came right back on the field, so no personnel changes. Connor Lee trying to take Hecko in, and she does. So
Another one.
Hecko goal number 2 for her. And Connor Lee assist number 3. Surprisingly, Grace Connerly just 1 assist last season. And I know people, I probably throw too many numbers out there. I know numbers are boring, so let me make it more exciting about Grace Connerly. She one time ate 80 oysters. Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow. 80
lobsters.
oysters at one time?
I said lobsters, my stomach started getting upset. But no, she ate 80. That's another number. But
Right,
anyway,
right.
it's
More
80
numbers
oysters.
for me. Okay, 80 oysters. Wow.
Yes.
In one sitting?
It just says one time ate 80 oysters.
Wow.
So I'm assuming, I think most of us have probably eaten 80 oysters over
Yeah?
the course of our lives. So
Not
I'm
in one
assuming it
sitting.
was one sitting.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
never even eaten oyster, so she's ahead of me.
Yeah, right now she's certainly eating up the assists for the Gridlock with 3. And I'm with you, Carmen. But for me, the excuse is a seafood allergy.
Okay.
Of course.
You and the allergies.
It's tough. It's a tough life. It's a tough life. My fiance's favorite food is lobster.
Oh,
So-
and you said my stomach started hurting when I heard that.
So there was a compromise, and I'm allowed to make myself sick like once a month,
Yeah.
a few times every summer. It's all right, a nice little lobster roll. But yeah, we survive. Again, I can't combine the allergies and the lobster. It should be impossible. And Sam Harris looked like they made the possible impossible, but Sam Harris again, that's a retracted call. I think it looked like it was a retracted call, but no, Sam Harris is going to have this conversation. We'll get another look at this and see if you tell me if you see contact.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, just a
Yeah.
bit. Looked like, again, made that disc uncatchable. Clock will stop at 7:50. So the observers step in with the disagreement, and the rule is a foul, so the strike will keep possession here. That will float a little bit. Well read by Byers. Strike having to fight for every inch on this O point. Well done by Brown. Did well to force Daly up into the handler space. Now this one a hook. And that is
Wow.
not going to float.
What interception there. What a catch.
Yeah, Banto Ryan. And I want to say a little bit of luck, too, in that first quarter. That same disc seemed to soar a bit more. And that time just pushed down. And Banto Ryan able to read it well.
That was a good throw.
Jazerski.
Throwing it out.
And Sam Harris. No doubt
Another
about
one.
that.
The crowd's going wild. What do you think is separating the Gridlock right now?
Was taking advantage of these opportunities. And it's interesting because it's not necessarily one thing. They've scored in a myriad of different ways, but I think that defensive intensity and defensive pressure, especially in the middle of the field, and we saw even after the foul, the observer came in, the foul was indeed a foul, so the strike get to reset. And we talked about that in the first half too. There were moments when the strike were able to reset their offense. They did a good job of it, but that time the defensive pressure from the Gridlock just being the difference.
Baker Street Health provides our players and staff with behavioral health, sport, and performance psychology, as well as podiatry services. They are located throughout New Jersey and are available for telehealth in over 35 states. From head to toe, our team is covered with Baker Street Health.
And I think you have to say, too, this D-line for the Gridlock has been the difference and kind of picking their spots. And for the strike, as we talked about, that flow they had in that first quarter just seems to have been eliminated to a bit for the second and third quarter. And That's always that question, right? Is it the defense that is kind of stepping up their game, or is it the offense that has to work through something? And
Yeah.
it's always a bit of both.
And sometimes the distance just doesn't kind of sleight of hand. Doesn't go your way.
As I mentioned, the pressure from Jezierski, both defensively and then again with her throws, just opening up the whole field. So Gridlock with their D-line, and a little bit of a mixed match on this strike 0 point. That is another underthrow. And Gridlock now up by 2 goals, can create some distance here. Hare makes sure that that's a completion. Same thing, layout on that far sideline. That's a nice around throw. And Brown almost took it away from her teammate. Brown looking for Pressburg, and that's over everybody.
Wow. They are really moving. I would say timeout if I'm Strike.
You can certainly feel the confidence now. And for Cassie Brown, last season played largely on the D-line, but 3 years ago in her first season, 13 assists for her. And you see, again, that offensive prowess that Cassie Brown has. And to have that kind of weapon on your D-line, it shows the depth of this Gridlock squad.
Yeah. And Cartagena is just out there. She's everywhere. She's making impactful plays. Really impressed with her.
So at this point, again, the Strike just looking to regroup here. Believe it or not, 3 goals, the largest lead that either team has had in this game. And they do say, maybe I just say this, but in Ultimate that, especially in these conditions, a 4-goal lead, it's tough to come back from that.
That's like a blowout.
With the time. But again, crazier things have happened, and this weather certainly is a great equalizer.
Plenty of time left, though, so we'll see what happens. Strike can make another strike.
Yeah, still 6 minutes, and
whole other quarter to go.
And since that first quarter, it has a lot to do with these breaks from the Gridlock, of course, but it's been a little bit quiet for Emma Poyer. But again, we've also seen a lot less of this Gridlock offense, and we don't see them again. It's largely the same D-line with Sam Harris returning. And we're on a 2-break streak. Beeman Weber trying to return the favor, and I think that was just enough of a tip of a hand from Demasio Donahue. Former cheerleader, back flipper, but has also been a pretty good Ultimate player for quite some time, a 2-time national champ as well with Brute Squad, Boston Brute Squad in 24 and 25. He didn't have to do any backflips there. Was just able to kind of stretch out and get enough of a hand for that D. And now here's the Strike going back to their zone. So zony junky look. Working to keep possession. Now back in their own end zone. Again, it's the second-year player, Maggie Fan, nicknamed Mac, coming in and out of, as they say, the popper. That's a high stall count. Jump ball. Harris comes down with it. Now the fast break. The Strike is there. Panta Ryan. And this is what you do want to see from the Gridlock against this kind of zone. Just a lot of patience, nothing rushed. Fan on the second effort. Keeps possession. I believe that's her first completion. She might have had 1 or 2, but at least the first completion in the second half. That might be a bit of a confidence builder.
Ooh.
That was ever so close. And now the fast break off to the races. And that one in the wind. Harris could not collect it. Yeah, and that's going to be a retracted call. That's probably the right thing, too. And that's got to be tough, though. I know this is the D-line, but you do all that good work to break through the pressure.
I was just thinking that. They really played that press well, and then they just lost it. But, hey, on to the next possession.
Remember, this is a Strike 0 point. It'll be a 50-50 ball.
Wow.
And again, all the highlights.
Is that Cartagena?
That is Sadie Jezierski again. That is at least her 4th block, maybe the 5th one that she gets credited with. And we'll take another look at it. Jaderski, I thought she was not going to get to this, but picture perfect.
I mean, she started playing in 6th grade, so I think she's pretty experienced, pretty seasoned.
But the Gridlock give it right back. So we talk about it too. These hucks, even if they're not completed, it becomes a game of field position, as that's a lot easier of a throw and a much higher completion from Johnson to Byers. Here's this breakthrough again, and we saw Johnson do this in the first half as well. Immediate pickup from the stoppage and the immediate breakthrough. Again, when you give throwers of this quality that much time to figure some things out, they can work on a mark.
NY Gridlock is proud to partner with Blazers Sports Bar, NYC's bold community-first sports bar dedicated to women's sports. Blazers will be airing Gridlock games all season long, and you join Gridlockers at Blazers during team meetups. For the love of the game and the trailblazing women who play it, whether you're celebrating a win or catching every moment of the season. Blazers is a place to cheer, connect, and honor the incredible athletes shaping the game.
And Carmen, let's talk, again, with 3 minutes left to go in this 3rd quarter, in a bigger macro sense, for this kind of doubleheader between the Wave and now the Gridlock and Strike here in the 2nd game. You were on sideline for that 1st game as well. Just seeing, it's not really just a celebration of, again, women in gender-expansive sports, but we'll get back to that in a second, because here's another huck. And so close on the
almost
layout.
Had it. That wind, the swirls we talked about, I think they kind of picked up the disc there.
Yeah, Yaverka, and don't look now, but again, the Gridlock still only hanging on to a 2-goal lead. The Strike could certainly change their fortunes here. So we'll get back to that other conversation in just a second here. So good pressure on the reset from Waverka. Strike, another high stall count. Again, this is the O-line for the Gridlock that really hasn't had a lot of burn here in that 2nd or 3rd quarters. High difficulty throw completed up the sideline. That's another huck.
Okay.
50-50, and well done by Poyer to get it back, the former Strike player. And Poyer, looking at how just how important she was to that Minnesota Ultimate community and how much winning she did. Since 2023, tied for 4th in the PUL with 33 goals. Also played and won with the PUL All-Star team in 2025. Another player who started in high school. Went to the University of Puget Sound out on the West Coast. And since then, all that time with the mixed club team. Dragon thrust, Krebs to the end zone. And that's another solid D from the Strike, cutting down that space. See if everybody's all right afterwards. I think it's still going to be a Strike disc with 1:06 on the clock in the 3rd. So will this be a timeout for the Strike? No, it'll be a pickup and on the cone. Good D by Monshine. Should be mentioned too. Just want to give credit. And when we're talking about excellent women athletes, as the Strike will call a timeout here, so it'll give us a moment to conversate a bit more about Sarah Monshine from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Also played on that PUL All-Stars team with Emma Poyer. But she was a walk-on on the 2014 Wisconsin Badgers women's soccer team. And you might say, the 2014 Wisconsin Badgers women's soccer team, I don't know anything about them, but you do. Because their star player was none other than Rose Lavelle, as in World Cup champion with the United States women's national team, Rose Lavelle.
Wow.
So, again, what is it, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I feel like that's always what it is, again, in the highest level of women's sports. Again, you played college with somebody or whatever it is, and it also shows, again, the adaptation of especially soccer players, basketball players, other players to then enter the world of Ultimate, unless, like many of these, they started in 6th to 8th grade or 9th grade or 10th grade. Right. But again, to go back to that kind of larger conversation here, is the striker going to pick it up out of the timeout? But to have a doubleheader like this, again, between the Wave and a Gridlock, even in the women and gender-expansive sports, you didn't see something, this kind of event, that you knew you could get tickets, you could sell tickets, and you could actually have just an event and a celebration of women and gender-expansive sports here. I just feel like you didn't even have that 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, women's sports are finally getting the recognition that they've duly deserved for a long time. People are really paying attention, taking notice, and also putting their money behind it. And that's the biggest thing. Purchasing tickets, coming to games, supporting, and being fans of really great sports, women's sports.
Fouls called on the other side. Yeah, I have to say I call a lot of men's sports as well, and here on these broadcasts, when we ask for those donations and those things like that, again, this is building something in a direction that, again, no disrespect to some of the men's games that I call, but there's a bit of a difference in the pay structure and things like that, and the outsized use of, again, the funds that come into this sport, you could directly see the effect of that money used on the field with players, with travel, with food, with all those little things that go into creating professional environments for these athletes. Again, with the work that they put in, they certainly deserve.
Definitely deserve it.
So that was a foul. And it goes against Macia O'Donoghue. So the strike, again, still kind of stuck here with 40 seconds left. Basically on their own goal line. Pressburg looked to jump that, but gave up power position. And speaking of powerful, Sam Harris cuts out that power position. And now for the question for the Gridlock is, will they call a timeout here with 21 seconds remaining? Clock stopped again. I think a little bit of a confusion here because, and Pressburg, I don't think was entirely sure why the clock was stopped. Yeah, it looks like the referee is saying, let's put a little more time on the clock. So 4 seconds added. So now we've got 25 seconds remaining here in the third. And it looks like for the third straight quarter, the Gridlock might have the opportunity, as you saw Sam Harris go in deep, and Brown was thinking about it. Brown's already unloaded a pretty terrific huck for a score. Was thinking about a second one. High saw count. And I think that time Brown took a little bit of an exception. Some physicality here on the mark. And that one decided pretty quickly. Over the top. Indeed, no second effort. So the question for the observers is, did that D occur with 1 second on the clock? Did the strike get one opportunity, or no? This is what it's going to be. The Gridlock, again, I would say, waste an opportunity to end a quarter with the last possession. But we can talk about that on the other side of the break, because the Gridlock still, though, with that 2-goal lead on all those defensive breaks, 7-5 with 12 minutes remaining.
Volar en un avión era mi mayor sueño. ¿Cómo se sentiría estar en el cielo? Me imaginaba surcando las nubes. Para mí, eso era libertad. Desde pequeña, supe que no encajaba como las demás chicas. Cuando empecé a jugar, era la única chica del equipo. El simple hecho de estar en el campo de juego era un acto de resistencia. Tuve que luchar por obtener esta oportunidad. No nos define nuestro pasado, sino la fuerza que se necesita para seguir adelante y crear algo mejor.
So again, to just kind of paint the picture of this game, we've had 3 clean holds from either offenses and 4 breaks for the New York Gridlock D-lines. 2 breaks on the other side for Minnesota, but it just shows you the difference that defense has been in this game, and we've been talking about some of the through lines here. And for the Gridlock, they added a few pieces. They've had some few long-term injuries to start this season, but for them, other than Ella Jungst, the 16 goals, 6 assists, 5 block getter from a season ago, and then Olivia Player also having being the other player who has not returned. Again, Jenny DeJesus was the leading goal getter for the team last season, but she, as the coaching staff hopefully told me, would be back for sometime in the regular season or early in the postseason. Again, that postseason comes off on you pretty quick here in the PUL season. And then for Minnesota, I'd say, even though they're down by 3 in this game, for the pieces that they're missing, again, with Poyer moving to to New York, I should say, and then missing your main handler in Backen, and then with Nexstroth, again, basically your primary undercutter and one of your taller players on your team. And as this is a bailout Huck coming, and that was good under defense from the Gridlock. I have to say, Carmen, so far, yes, they're down by 3, but if you're Minnesota and this is your first game out on the road, you're kind of saying, okay, there are a few pieces we're able to replace, and we kind of have a better idea who we might be, having lost, again, well, 2 of our most important players from a season ago, but also without one of our most important players on offense.
Yeah, I mean, they're in it. They're sticking with the Gridlock. It's just, like I said, a matter of pieces and timing, and just, like you said, like it's first game, like a lot of games left.
And I wonder for Minnesota, too, if in the back of their mind, now New York, they're off until next Saturday, where they will be heading down to the D.C. area to take on the D.C. Shadow at Carlini Field. Again, that's a 7 p.m. start. But for Minnesota, again, they got to get right back on the road, and I guess they go down the Jersey Turnpike, or I'd get on 95, and they're heading down to Philadelphia to play the Surge tomorrow.
Oh, wow, back-to-back games?
So it's a little bit about conserving, potentially, if you're Minnesota. If this game feels like here in the fourth quarter, all might be lost, and with that 3-goal lead, again, Cassie Brown on another break into the end zone for the Minnesota-born Audrey Parrott. But there was a travel on Brown. Have to think that throw, that inside backhand, it looked too good. Had to be a travel. I wonder if, and I don't want to I'm not a lip reader, but I'm assuming that Cassie Brown saying wasn't a travel, there was just too much sauce, there's too much skill. That's what you saw, not a travel. And if it is a travel, it would be a loss of yards. So let's see this one again. To Brown, so not in, tapped it in. It didn't look like a travel to me.
I just do better. It's not a travel. Come on.
Again, she may have taken herself into the end zone, but she reset possession, and observers disagree. And we also privy to the replays. That one's not a travel, as Presburg seals the deal, and Brown picks up another assist. And most importantly, the Gridlock with 10 minutes and 42 seconds remaining in the fourth, 8-5. And we're not yet at that point where it's insurmountable for Minnesota, but it does feel like at some point, the Gridlock is not going to be the only opponent of the strike. The clock is also going to begin to be one of the enemies.
Because now the pressure's on. It's like you have to score. It's 10 minutes left.
And I think an important part of this game, too, is, Carmen, and the strategy of, in theory, throwing hucks means you can get yourself back in the game, right? It's like when you're in basketball and you're down by 20 points or 25 points.
Got to shoot threes.
Right. It looks like, well, that's our best chance, but in truth, using the basketball analogy again, the best shot available really is the thing that helps you back in the game. And so often in Ultimate, the same thing is that you just need to get that break. Because who knows? I mean, the Gridlock could turn it over in their own half of the field on 3 occasions, and here you're back in the game.
Absolutely.
So for Abby Hecko, again, moving from that D-line to the O-line this season, probably would have thought, hey, I'm going to get a lot of burn on this O-line, but instead, again, it's been the D-line that has been on the field for the Gridlock the majority of the time here in the second half. Credit to the strike offense. They have really used the width of the field well. High stall count, though, here. Push pass. Trying, and just working around the horn. To the open side. That's a really good cut on the under by Koch. I think that was a miscommunication, but what a catch. That is a heck of a grab on that far sideline. But then throwing into traffic, into pressure. So they're going to credit that with Banter Ryan, but Pressburg was right there too. And now with your Gridlock too, and you obviously don't want to do this, but if you can somehow take your offense into second gear, just a bit too far for Sam Harris on the layout, and they might be worse for the wear on this turf. There you see Harris. And again, our excellent sports performance staff led by Rita Elazar checking on Sam Harris. And I actually told Sam a few weeks ago in our Brooklyn Spring League, I said that if you ever see me going horizontal like that, I need you to call 9-1 and just hover your finger over the other one. Because when I hit the ground, a sports information official, a sports performance official, I'm going to need a lot more than that. So Gridlock giving the strike another opportunity. Still stuck on the sideline. This is a big assignment for Fan. You've seen the break throws from Rachel Johnson. Fan now working her out of the backfield. Good job by Peter Ryan again.
What a throw.
Yeah, that's going to float perfectly. And that's pretty.
Nice. That was a nice throw. Underhanded throw.
A nice little inside forehand break.
Yeah.
And we've seen Jane Koch in the end zone especially. This is her first goal on the day, but not for a lack of trying. Again, this is a really fantastic put by Monshine in her 5th season with the club. And Jane Koch finding some separation finally in the end zone.
This live broadcast is brought to you by the Premier Ultimate League. The PUL is a 501(c) nonprofit. This league has been community funded since day one, and we are so grateful for the support. We ask that you consider donating to help us continue to transform and fulfill our mission. Head to premierultimateleague.com to donate today.
So don't look now, but the Strike have, again, cut this one to 2. So we are not finished yet. Despite the Gridlock picking up another break in this quarter. And it should be noted, too, since we kind of mentioned those dirty holds, the Gridlock have also had 2 clean holds here in this contest. And it'll be another opportunity to work through their offense, again, that we haven't really seen too much of this in the second half due to the 5 breaks total from the second quarter on. Hecko thought about it. In 8 minutes remaining, so can't really take too much time. Just have to keep scoring, keep having to play your game. Inside break, Connerly, Krebs, Cartagena. Well done. Another inside break, and Lamb finishes the play. Gridlock back up 3.
Strike, making some momentum, and Gridlock said, hey, nope, one more.
Yeah, we talked about those clean holds. That's the 3rd clean hold for the Gridlock, and that's exactly what you want to see. Again, Cartagena, this inside break. Yeah, I think that was Grace Connerly again with another assist. Connerly, that is assist number 4 for her in this contest.
Huge thank you to IDA Sports for hooking NY Gridlock up with cleats this season and making sure our athletes are ready to compete at the highest level. If you're looking for new cleats this season, you can support NY Gridlock and get yourself a pair using our code NY Gridlock. using the QR code here.
$7:44 remaining. And Gridlock still holding on to that narrow lead. And if you did watch tape of the Philadelphia Surge so far this season, they look again like a daunting task. And if you're in his third season as the head coach of the Strike, Donnie Wood, and you might be considering again some of your roster, maybe not trying to push things too far. But again, this O-line for the Strike, they've actually had to switch things up as Pressburg, huge foot block on the mark. And that, as odd as a defensive play might feel like a dagger, I don't think we're just there yet, but it might if the Gridlock score here.
If the Gridlock score here is going to be very hard to come back.
Parrott.
More so.
To Brown. Up over the top, coming through.
They said not yet.
Steph Wood, one of the captains, one of the leaders.
Steph Wood said, hold up. Not yet, not today.
They're going to talk about it. And if you were around in the good old days of the internet, you might know Steph Wood better by her AOL screen name, Sporty Shorty 829.
Sporty Shorty?
And there I am with the more numbers. It's fun trivia, but more numbers. And
Sporty Shorty. That's a good one. Like her AIM name, like she's like all that.
Yep, back in the AOL days. It's when your internet would make this sound before you got on, and you go. I mean, my voice already sounds like that anyway, so we're doing all right. So the Strike back on offense. But that is just a stone cold drop. Haven't seen too many of those today.
2 unforced errors by.
And Beeman Weber has actually been pretty quiet after that first half. We saw, again, the ability they had to create separation and find the end zone. But since that time, I think Pressburg has done a pretty good job as the primary matchup on Beeman Weber. And now the Strike stuck in that corner. And that was almost a Callahan, but Pressburg can choose to make the safe play. Now they'll have to switch. And there Pressburg, you see in that backfield, switching right back and immediately cutting off that swing. Well done on the Gridlock communication. Another layout, this time again from Wood. How many times has she saved possession for the Strike today? Correction, that was Daly. Well, the point still stands. It's Wood downfield that Beeman Weber couldn't find with 5:30 remaining. Again, the clock still just time coming off, and the Gridlock forcing a ton of throws. So even if the Strike find the end zone, so much time is cut off the clock. Well done on the around. Beeman Weber, now a high stall count, putting it out to space, but a miscommunication. Audrey Parrott behind the play, and for all that good work, again, you just see the slight miscommunication, that slight bit of timing. Almost feels like first game breakdowns. And that's a first game breakdown as well. So this is a shock here. It looked like it was going to be a poach block for the Strike, but instead they say that the Gridlock called a timeout before the disc had left the Gridlock player's hand. So they will have the disc at the 4:49 mark here in the fourth quarter.
Shout to Gridlock sponsor Well by Messer, the premier metabolic and wellness health center for metabolic health in New York and Connecticut. Under the leadership of Manhattan-based endocrinologist Dr. Carolyn Messer, her team of endocrinologists, adult and pediatric, internists, dermatologists, urologists, gynecologists, psychologists, registered dietitians, and trainers is dedicated to a mind-body approach to wellness. At Well by Messer, our goal is to support successful outcomes through a personalized and balanced approach that utilizes evidence-based medicine and wellness.
So you got to think if you're this Strike D-line, or as again, it is now a D-line, as the O-line for the Gridlock have come on after that timeout, hence the timeout. So again, this is a test for the O-line of the Gridlock as Hecko gives it away. And that is a D on the run through by Koch again. So the strike was kind of going almost with a best 7 here. Koch. And that was the turnover they needed, getting it against this Gridlock O-line, which I would assume would likely come right back on the field here, even if the strike score. I should say especially if the strike score. But that's going to be a run-through D. It's the former Minnesota strike player, and Emma Poyer, that might have had the defensive dagger. .343 remaining. Cartagena getting down the Gridlock. I was going to say they could go into second gear. That one over the head of Lamb, but it's all about field positioning, as now the striker going to have to go all 80 yards to get there. And I think at this point, again, with tired legs, instead they call an injury. So that will give these players a moment to rest, but with 3:26 remaining, it'll be a quick substitution. It looks like it was Wood who returned to the field to play. And again, when one team takes an injury substitution, the other team is allowed one substitution as well. Okay. So it'll be a defensive substitution in Demasio Donahue. Again, from Hanson, Massachusetts, another one of those Tufts products. And Tufts is not known just for its academics, but also pretty good ultimate frisbee. What a breakthrow there. Crowd check Kumrau. Haven't heard too much of her today, as we've got a player down behind the play as well. And for the Gridlock, they might have a week off, but again, with all the players currently out, either with injuries or unavailable for today's game. Again, I already mentioned Jenny DeJesus, but not the only one. Montana Roberts out for this one. Valerie Cardenas, a late scratch. Janine Halavati out. Emma Chin out. And the big one, other than Jenny DeJesus, recently Chris Spoon Nelson, unfortunately, will be missing for this entire season. And the New York Bent player and Chris Spoon Nelson, one of the main pullers, D-line handlers, and fortunately, over to walk off with some help. Again, not being able to put any weight on that left foot. It's, again, if you're a Gridlock fan, exactly what you don't want to see.
Especially at the end of a game when you're up a few scores. Good thing they're off.
So fortunately, able to put a little bit of weight on it is Demasio Donahue. And as we just were mentioning, as I talked about Chris Spoon Nelson, one of the most important D-line players that the coaching staff were expected to have this season. Again, you don't want to lose another D-line player. Again, because again, you had to use Hecko on the O-line. Speaking of Hecko on the mark here, Connerly, and as we restart proceedings, just 2:45 remaining in this game. It's a break throw. That one floated well. And they're going to hook. It's Hecko again in the deep space. Well read. And Hecko with another D. You see Abby Hecko, for as good as she has been on this O-line, kind of an underrated part of having her on the O-line is that you do need people on the O-line to go get the disc back. Mm-hmm. And Abby Hecko, again, being, we'll say, a D-line convert to the O-line, has been important to do just that today. Two minutes remaining now, as it looks like the strike starting to really run out of time. Connerly. Now Krebs. We haven't really had any moments in this game either where Julie Krebs has done what we know she can do, and that's completely take over. And I think if you're the Gridlock, it's kind of a good thing that, hey, we haven't had to use that break glass in case of emergency for Jolie Krebs. Cartagena getting free in the dump space. Here's Krebs. And that's beautiful from Jolie Krebs.
Nice.
Just as I mentioned, she hasn't done much today. She puts the exclamation point on this one with a beautiful assist. And the goal into Banta Ryan, her first of the season. And here's another look at that Krebs inside break, just leading Banta Ryan so well to space.
That was nice.
So that should do it, as, if I'm not mistaken, the Gridlock have opened up their first 4-goal lead of the contest and could put this one to bed. Again, if you're Minnesota, you have a few things to talk about. But you don't have much time to talk about them because they're heading down again to Philadelphia to play the Surge. And then they return home on April the 25th to host the Milwaukee Monarchs. Meanwhile, the Gridlock, while they are in D.C. next Saturday, they are back home at Vecina Field up in New Rochelle in New York on May the 10th at 2 p.m. hosting the Milwaukee Monarchs. So I'm going to assume that the Milwaukee Monarchs might use this game for a little bit of tape.
Yeah.
Knowing that they're playing both these teams in the coming weeks.
For sure. Good showing from both teams. And this is the first game of the season, so improvements can be made, adjustments.
Oh, the strike could, as no pun intended, strike quickly here, as we mentioned. Johnson going deep from the handler space. That was a low throw, but a good catch. And an important clean hold as well. Just 20 seconds came off the clock and back down to 3 goals. Yeah, really low. Again, Rachel Johnson making that wheel cut.
For those of you watching at home, we are sorry you couldn't join us. We'd like you to please consider donating $20, the price of a game ticket, to help support player travel and training. Thank you.
A little bit biased, but if you're not here, I enjoy that you did get to listen to us here on this stream.
Yeah,
again.
come on.
Whatever state that my voice was in, the Gridlock in certainly much better form than me on the day as they look to move to 1-0 on the season. Remember, they're as much as that 5-1 record from a season ago feels good. That loss to the DC Shadow, 22-14 in the semis, coming in as the favorite. Your only loss of the season comes in the postseason.
That hurts.
And certainly, again, it was a game that the Shadow put the Gridlock away pretty quickly. And then the DC Shadow, of course, went on to be the PUL champions, beating the Raleigh Radiants 18-17 in the final. And, of course, the Gridlock would get back to their winning ways, as back in the 2024 season, they were the PUL champions with a perfect 6-0 record and a plus 38 on the season, beating that same DC Shadow team 16-10 in the finals. And there's something about these teams in the 95 corridor. Philadelphia, as I've said, this season might start to feel like, hey, maybe it's our turn. As Faye Epstein of the Surge currently leads the PUL in total blocks, though Sadie Jazerski certainly gave her something to think about today. Connerly, as it looks like, I think we've got one more pass. This might be it. I think that's going to do it. And Cartagena, I'm not sure if she knows how much time is left, but, well, they will have a last possession. So this one really just has to do with point differential at the end of the season, because our game has ended and New York has picked up the victory. But the question is, did they win by 3 goals or 4 goals tonight? Connerly, she's going to need another assist, though. So it's Connerly to Waverka, at the final fourth quarter buzzer, which gives Waverka her first goal. And for Grace Connerly, 5 assists. That is clearly a game high. Hecko had 2 goals. Presburg had 2. And on the other side, it was Beeman, Weber, Koch, and Byers, the difference makers in terms of goals. And Rachel Johnson with a goal and assist to her name. But I think more than that, again, we're talking about goals and assists, but I don't want to lead you too much, Karin, but to me, I think the big difference between this game was, again, that defensive intensity that the Gridlock showed late in that second half into the second, late in the first half into the second.
Yeah, I agree. And I just think, when moments came about, Gridlock took advantage, and they had some big plays, and they got the scores.
And as we wrap this one up for Minnesota, again, looking ahead to Philadelphia tomorrow, what are some of the things you'd like to see them tweak?
Definitely just timing and taking advantage of the momentum when they have it.
So again, for the New York Gridlock, they are down in D.C. at Carlini Field next Saturday at 7 p.m. and then back home at Facina Field on May the 10th at 2 p.m. hosting the Milwaukee Monarchs. And for the Minnesota Strike, as we keep mentioning, they play the Philadelphia Surge tomorrow, and then they return home on April the 25th to host the Milwaukee Monarchs. So if you were joining this broadcast as a Minnesota Strike fan or a New York Gridlock fan, I hope you enjoyed either way. And for my broadcast partner, Carmen, for my producer, Sean, again, I was Dan Hilton. We're battling the allergies, but we are overjoyed and excited that the PUL season has returned, especially here in New York. So everybody, thanks for watching and have a great night.
Good night, guys.